Wellington's become a bit like a sort of human whirlpool. It has become so incestuous that it is trapped within its own orifice, and essentially it whirls around at ever increasing speed, flinging out those with a slightly independent point of view, and sucking in further those that are left into some sort of, well, as I said, maelstrom or whirlpool of political correctness and wokeness, etc. Now, the reason I raised this morning is because, and apropos, obviously, all right, so essentially, Waipapa Tomato Row, Waitangi Tribunal, if you like, the governance set of Wellington believe inherently one thing, that Māori people are better as a race, as an ethnicity, as a culture, than anyone else who lives here. Now, they don't say that, but that's the practical consequence of where they lead with these sorts of things. That somehow Māori were this pure, wonderfully able group of people living an outstanding life in Aotearoa, although it wasn't called Aotearoa at the time, with a set of values and principles that found them at some inner harmony with nature, and that their culture had such a degree of integrity, probity, genius even, and innovation, even despite the fact they hadn't discovered the wheel, but had such a level of purity about it, that when the first contact came with the destabilizing, demonic, and frankly destructive European powers, and Britain in specific, all that innocence of the Garden of Eden was lost. And that everything in the 21st century from those group of people is about trying to, in a funny way, go back to that Māori Garden of Eden by elevating the special people, the special culture, the special worldview to a status within New Zealand that restores and heals us all. So I don't think I've overstated that. No, I haven't. And how does this fit with David Farrar? Well, one of the leading white proponents of this kind of concept is someone by the name of Dame Anne Salmon. And she has given, yes, I know, the Labour Party, I think, gave her a knighthood for her work dealing with treaty issues, a treaty historian in essence. And she's written just recently on Newsroom, another leftist, Labour, Marxist type news organisation, an article which is where you'd find this sort of prolicitation about what's the matter with the Treaty Principles Bill. It's essentially a 4-page attack on the character, values, and political integrity of David Seymour and the ACT Party in general. And I'll share, if you want me to, I'll share it with you. But somebody, in actual fact, has written in the commentary, so it allows a little bit of commentary afterwards, a point that a lot of New Zealanders, though, would tend to agree with what David Seymour's doing. And because Dame Anne Salmon's argument essentially is that this government has been taken over by a right-wing fascist minority, not dissimilar to, for example, the right-wing groupings in Israel having taken over Netanyahu, for example, that David Seymour is that sort of equivalent, and how anti-democratic and offensive that is, not just to Māori, but to all of New Zealand's constitutional history and to democracy in general, that David Seymour and his grubby group should be driving this discussion about the treaty, its principles, its meaning, and its status in New Zealand. And her argument, or a central thesis, is that 91% of New Zealand is being held hostage on all treaty issues by 9%. And this is as I said, the grubby group travellers of ACT. In response to that, in the comments section to Dame Sama, somebody pointed out to her that in actual fact, all the polls suggest that there is strong public support for an understanding of what the treaty principles are, so a majority of us actually don't know what they are, and B, to sort and settle this matter once and for all. And this was Dame Anne Salmon's reply. The Research Association New Zealand, that holds market researchers to the highest professional and ethical standards, is holding an inquiry into tax union courier polls. It would be wise to treat any of their polls about the treaty with the utmost caution until the outcome is announced. So even when there are reputable polls that would suggest that Dame Anne Salmon and her fellow travellers are wrong, nope, let's go and attack the messenger, not the message, shall we? And it just goes to show that even when and so the suggestion of Dame Anne Salmon is that David Farrar and Curia are essentially dishonest dissemblers. And that's her answer to the majority of New Zealanders actually wanting a discussion about the treaty. Oh, the polls fake because they're fake, as far as I'm concerned, says Dame Salmon. And that's the level of argument that we've reached in this country. Listen, can I say, I'm over this. I'm sick and tired of Māori being paraded as some sort of special people. And I don't mean special education people, but as some sort of inherently decent individuals. I'm over it. I'm sick and tired of people trying to cast aspersions, illusions, to suggest that if any individual Māori finds themselves in straitened or criminal circumstance, that's not their fault. I'm over the idea that only Māori care about the environment of this country, and I'm sure over the idea that I now must suffer the reimposition of pagan beliefs in this country when I sit around a council table and determine the best use of water in this country as well. I'm over this concept that a polytheistic te ao view of the world should actually be ingrained as a matter of course into every science course, for example, that Auckland University is going to teach. I'm over the fact that Māori seem on the one hand to be the perfect people who have been corrupted by civilization, and particularly Western civilization on the one hand, but on the other, their corruption individually can be excused because of the first bit, and that all of the deleterious, destructive and difficult things that happen to Māori in this country on an individual or a collective basis are somehow the result of my ancestors arriving in this country, it is now 200 years ago, almost 200 years ago, and bringing a superior technological education and civilization as if it is somehow the forces of evil. Certainly, can I tell you that Māori took one look, and it didn't take long, at that superior civilization in the late 18th and early 19th century and said, "We want some, please," and utilised that technology in many cases for the most appalling and aggressive of instances, including the genocide against, well, my other ancestors on the other side, the Moriori people on the Chatham Islands. I'm over the idea that somehow Māori are the kaitiaki of this country, that they are the carers and the custodians of an environment, and only their particular environmental view counts. At a time when, even before Europeans had arrived, 50 different plants and animals and birds had disappeared from human existence, and that Māori, in their very short time in New Zealand, had actually transformed the landscape and burnt most of the bush themselves in pursuit of their hunting, or out of just pure blind ignorance, I guess, and in many cases had to leave certain places because they'd destroyed the little bits around them and so moved on. You never hear about that, do you? You never hear about the 50 different plant or animal or bird species that were eradicated before the English and Europeans arrived in this country. Yep, and I'll tell you what, they only had the hook, the stick, and fire to do that. That's pretty good. So I'm over this, and I'm just saying that to you. And when Dame Anne Salmon then says, and trying as she has this morning, that she's going to defend continually this idea that Māori are a special people, and she's going to denigrate anybody that says, listen, any rational discussion is somehow the product of racism and bias, then listen, we need to call these people out, and we need to keep calling them out forever. Those are my thoughts this morning. What are yours?